the wall of social divide. How political, economic, and social critique identifies the 5 faces of equality. Wang, Tsinghua University, Beijing.
When the wall fell, I was in Beijing.
It's great. It's really great to be here. It's a very stimulating discussion. And already several speakers touch upon the issue of China. And if we summarize that, the Chinese development's last decades is that the double phases of that development. One is a rapid growth and a large-scale reduction of poverty and the great economic achievements. This is a lot of the a lot of discussions coming up. Another phase of that is the gulf between the rich and the poor, the conflicts between city, the urban, and the countryside, the uneven development of the regions, especially the coastal area and the inland area, and the ethnic conflicts, together with the ecological crisis, all ultimately hinge on relations between the labor and the capital under the current conditions of the production. But the causes underlying these phenomena are extraordinarily complicated. This is why human living conditions as well as democracy are matters of concern, not just to the political system, but also to forms of social organizations. All the contemporary social political alternatives, different kind of, like the Chinese system, socialist system, social democracy, liberal democracy, now face similar challenges when it comes to the divergence or uncoupling of the political system from forms of social organizations. In light of the new reality China now faces, the aforementioned divergence, I believe it needs to build upon its own egalitarian heritage to think about the new idea. On the one hand, to have the legacy, but on the other hand, it's new ideas. As far as the crisis of the political practice is concerned, I think that at this point, the notion of a breakdown of the representation is best suited to elucidate what has occurred. In the wake of the social and economic transformations, supposedly representative political systems in different forms have all at once lapsed into serious crisis. Political, economic, and cultural elites and their interests have dissociated themselves from the masses. This is the social basis for the breakdown of the representation. That, for example, in China, the economic the transformation follows the large-scale process of industrialization, which quite different from American and other countries, which also is the large-scale process of the making of new working class. But in this process, the political parties more and more neutralized. That in that sense, the lower social strata has no voice in the political public sphere. So that's also the breakdown of the representation as the form, in this form. If we consider the notions such as equality or the theories of justice under the rubric of the modern politics of equality, we may gain a better understanding of the problem raised before, the uncoupling of the political from the social forms of organization. Since the crisis of democratic and socialist forms of the social society organization involves equality, I would like to consider the different kind of connotation of the equality and the strengths and the limits of that. Let me start from the very brief the examination of the 3 versions of that concept here. The first category of the equality is equality of opportunity, of course. The second is the equality of redistribution or the equality of the outcome. These 2 categories are the most familiar today. In the first instance, equality is defined Nowadays, politically and legally, the emphasis is placed on the preventing discrimination. But the problem, this is also the starting point of the Chinese reform. In the end, the institution of the logic of capital into every sphere of life transformed this radical notion of equality from the bourgeois revolutionary era into a notion of equality of opportunity weighted to the market competition. Even the struggle against the inherited privilege culminated in a network of interests dominated by economic considerations. According to the principle of equality of opportunity, inequalities of income and other circumstances of life are the result of natural conditions. Lower class people can improve their own economic and social situation by dint of their own efforts. So this is in this context, the struggle for equality among classes, social strata, nationalities and ethnic groups is focused on the free access to the market and on the value of the labor power that these groups can contribute. Since the exchange of the commodities takes place on the assumption that the labor is separate from the rights of the possession, that the content of the notion of equality gets transformed gradually into a form of the legitimacy tied to exchange. In the notion of equality of opportunity, equality does not play the role of a social ideal subversive of the logic of the capital. So distributive justice and equality are the part of the heritage of the socialist or the social democracy, the legacy. Their overlap with another notion, namely the equality of condition. Under the capitalism, especially in the industrial age, technology and the capital made a mockery of so-called equality of opportunity. The labor movement began to define equality of condition as one goal of collective bargaining. The government's bills mainly serve to attain the greater equality of condition. The goal of such bills is to raise the level of wage by diminishing the supply of labor power and support the trades unions in their effort to raise wages and improve working conditions. Beyond these, the redistribution of social welfare via taxes has been an important component of the equality of the condition. That's basically the social democracy model based. So the third, the concept of the equality I discussed here is about the equality of the capability. So in his essay, The Entitled Equality of What?, Amartya Sen begins by analyzing the relationship between the human beings and the things. Following Rawls, he formulates a new concept, namely the equality of basic capabilities. This notion designates the extent to which people are capable of fulfilling their basic needs, and it includes such capabilities as that of obtaining necessary nourishment, clothing, and a living space, as well as the capacity to participate in the life of society. From Sen's point of view, equality of result and the material dimension of justice don't take precedence over justice understood as the development of human capabilities. To be sure, where distributive justice is concerned, one may divide the material sphere into the rights, liberties, opportunities, income, wealth, and dignity. Together, they constitute the social foundations of justice. In this sort of classification, the material sphere lies at the heart of the matters, yet there is a new link between it and the lives of human beings. The notion of achievement managed to forge that link, but it fails to consider the capabilities of human beings, focuses instead only on their mental disposition. Nevertheless, even the capabilities approach has its shortcomings. The heart of the problem can be summarized in this way. Not only does the notion of distributive justice have a material tilt, the things themselves have taken on the character of commodities. To this extent, one can understand the human capability only in terms of the capability to have control over the objects. Thus, in a conceptual sense, the term human capabilities acts as a stand-in for labor as a commodity. So this is some other aspects. So that's why the decline of socialism and the crisis of the social democracy is evident not only in the problem of distribution or the growing gulf between the rich and the poor, it is also implicit in the position of the workers in the process of production and the life of society generally. It is harder to disentangle democratic social form from the economic structure in which they are embedded. So without the democratizing these economic structures, even social democracy, later along the socialist like a democracy will not be possible. Thus, besides achieving distributive justice through the physical system, the next crucial move must be to democratize the internal structure of the business enterprises by giving working people some share in managing them. I mention these dimensions because last years there was a tragedies with the Foxconn company in China. A series of the workers committed the suicides. That the position of the workers in the company was really matters. In brief, it is more appropriate to describe the studies and experiments in this era under the rubric of forms of social organization than in terms of economic democracy. The reason for this preference lies in the fact that democracy on the shop floor or in the land ownership cannot be assigned solely to the category of the economy. When the political system as a whole is incongruent with these democratic forms of organization, then inevitably we will have a fractured society. Here, now after this, I try to suggest started from some ideas, started from the early tradition of Chinese philosophy, but try to put into the contemporary thinking. Besides the three main concepts of equality already I presented, I propose to offer a fourth, the equality, so-called all things. That's the Qi in Chinese traditional philosophy, a notion used here in a sense suggested by the modern philosopher Zhang Taiyan, one of the leading thinkers in the early 20th century. The concept has certain elements in common with notions such as equality in diversity, equality in difference, and the pluralism of the philosophical theories of justice. Yet none of these ideas captured the full meaning of the equality of all the things. The equality of all things depends on a theory of the things that by Daoist philosophy, anchored in a classical Chinese thought. In this theory, things are active subjects, so they cannot simply be interpreted from the anthropocentric vantage point as mere means to the stratification of the human needs. We remember that Amartya Sen criticized that the early idea of a distribution is they try to have a dynamic, subjective, active version of the equality, that's capability. However, that the whole things still based on the objects were distributed. That's the in the opposition in between. So if the equality of humankind is discussed only in terms of the distribution of things, even supposing that such a distribution were done differently, it becomes impossible to demonstrate that it is the form of things, possessions, that is the true source of domination of inequality. Equality on the basis of commodity exchange does indeed express a relationship among the human beings, but ones in which there appears as things. Because now, for example, a lot of the minority areas, the crisis there, together with the natural environment changes following the economic developments. So that, I think, is why the idea what matters. The ecological crisis and the environmental disasters have stirred up many discussions and moments devoted to them, as long as the anti-nuclear movement sparked by the Fukushima disaster relies for its arguments on the utilitarianism. It will never come up with any true alternative, because it will have rejected the one destructive form of thought in favor of another one. So this is the fourth. I have no time to talk about the fifth, that already many people talk about the international dimensions, that we need to formulate the concept of the equality, go beyond only the citizenship of nation state. Thank you.